Hello, thanks for watching the channel at YouTube. So, there is definitely a huge gap between their comeback in like 2001, or let's say really 1987 and 2012. There's a gap within there, because they didn't really release a whole lot besides that demo in 1989. I don't want to talk about that one. Please, I don't want to. Anyways, they would then reunite for a show in 2001, and that was about it. But since Exumer were a thrash metal band, I guess the thing is, they weren't really sure if anybody was that interested in thrash metal. Of course, within the 90s, you had grunge, you had death metal, you had black metal, and also, even to some extent, doom metal. Then you had the whole power metal scene within Europe. Little power metal in the U.S. The only band that really kind of kept that sort of power metal sound of something was probably Iced Earth, but they were still more a mixture of power metal and thrash metal. U.S. power metal, you know, you had many different genres, but thrash metal was kind of not as much. It was definitely underground, but as far as the giants, you pretty much know. I don't need to reiterate every fucking thrash band that kind of changed style, besides Slayer, which didn't really change that much, unless you really want to count Diabolus and Musica. But then with Exumer, since them being a German band, the only really German thrash metal bands that really were keeping the thrash sound alive were probably Sodom. Creators seem to have changed here and there. Destruction kind of, I guess, might have. Takeguards seem to have not changed. But Exumer, really, they didn't really release a whole lot. So up until the two later parts of the 2000s and then up to the 2010s, they then get signed to Metal Blade Records, one of the giants within metal, and the record label that gave us Metallica and Slayer and Voivod and such others. Just pretty much decide to sign Exumer to release the comeback album, which actually features the comeback of Mem Von Stein on Stein. I think I might have butchered his name again, on vocals, with only another with the one of the guitar. I can't. All right, I'm not going to worry. You know who it is, but there is another. There is at least three new members. One of them being HK, which we'll get to him later on within this video. And so in 2012, they released the comeback album, FIRE DAMNATION, which I never really listened to until now, which is kind of weird. But I guess there's some reasons why I kind of waited to listen to this. It isn't a bad album. Let's just get that out of the way. It's not a bad album, and there's definitely some good spots about it. Like the title track, which kicks off the album, is definitely good, alongside Vermin of the Sky. But right within track 3, track 4, to track 5, at least track 3, track 4, and track 6, actually, not 5. 5's actually a pretty good, which is Walking the Fire, which is another really good track off of this album. But 2, 3, and 6. Now let me get this out of the way. There's at least there's about 10 songs on this album, and it pretty much clocks in around 33 minutes. Not a very long album. But there's about 8 new songs and 2 re-recorded tracks. Track 6 being a classic song off of the debut album, Possessed by Fire, which is Fallen Saint. And track 8 being I Dare You off of the Rising from the Sea album. But let's get to track 2 and track 3, which, I mean track 3 and track 4, excuse me, which is The Weakest Slim, and A New Morality, which are kind of the weakest songs on this album. It's not, they're not bad songs, it's just not really that interesting, especially The Weakest Slim, which is talk about ironic. The Weakest Slim, it's definitely the weakest track on this album, alongside A New Morality. But then let's get to track 6, which is the re-recorded version of Fallen Saint. This track kind of feels a little unnecessary. They really shouldn't have. It's not as bad as what fucking Evans and Cliff Evans and Mick Tucker did with freaking re-recording Honor and Blood, which I don't want to talk about that again. I don't want to. But it's right here. Exumer kind of gets a pass, but not a huge pass, because of this isn't really that good of a re-recorded version. It's not. Who knows? Probably has to do with the vocals, which kind of took me off guard, because it almost sounded like a very mediocre thrash singer. Wait a minute. That mediocre thrash singer is actually Paul Arakaki, the guy who's replaced Mem Von Stein for the Rising from the Sea album. Yeah, yes, Paul Arakaki sings on Fallen Saint. And he sounds quite different, because of I did not know that was him. Even though I was looking through the metal archives, I just kept overlooking the fact that he sings on Fallen Saint, and yet Mem Von Stein sings on I Dare You. How the kind of change in even singers, or just like a switcheroo, kind of really disjoints Fire Damnation a bit more, even though it kind of feels disjointed anyway. This is definitely another adding to the disjointness of Fire Damnation. It's definitely not a bad re-recorded song, but it's not bad either. It's just one that just kind of falls flat. But let's get to track 7, which is a Crashing Point, which kind of takes things up a bit. It's let's just say the quality now lifts up instead of drops even further. Not a bad song. It's definitely probably not the greatest track, but it's definitely one that actually kind of let's just say makes up for the kind of blandness that was the re-recorded version of Fallen Saint. But then let's also get the Devil Chaser, which is not a bad song either. It's definitely pretty good as well. But let's also get the track 9. Excuse me, it was track 9 and 6, not track 8. Which is, yeah, I'm fucking up. Anyways, track 9, which is the re-recorded version of I Dare You, which instead of featuring Paul Arakaki on vocals, which he is the guy who originally sang on this one, on the track, but Mem Von Stein sings on it. Now, I'll say that this is actually that this re-recorded version actually ends up being a lot better than the Fallen Saint re-recorded, but it still isn't that good either. It's a little disjointed in places as well. Though if I really have to be honest, I would have been much more pleased if they had kept I Dare You and took off Fallen Saint. But still, not a bad re-recorded version. It's just, again, both Fallen Saint and I Dare You just feel kind of unnecessary. Just to, I guess, to, let's just say, kind of heighten the time a bit, kind of lengthen it. Because of, if this was kept to 8 tracks, it would have not been that very long. It probably would have been around 28, 29 minutes long. It would have, or 30. It would have not been a really long album. They just wanted to kind of, just to lengthen the time up a bit. That's all I can think of. But let's get to the last track, which is Tribal Furies, which is not a bad way to end the album, but it's not too good either. Again, this is the reason why I say that Fire Damnation is very disjointed in places. There's some good songs on here, but then there's just some that just kind of doesn't seem to be as high standard. Overall, this isn't a bad comeback album. Now I said that I would get back to HK, who is the second guitar player on this album. This would actually be the last time he would be on, since he was sadly passed away in 2014 due to lung cancer. So that isn't that sucks, but he's would have been interesting to see how he would have played on with Exumer. But other than that, not a bad album, but it's far from a classic album. To me, when people say that Rising from the Sea is like one of the band's weakest, that's underestimating that album, because Rising from the Sea is definitely a lot better album than Fire Damnation, in my opinion. Even though some do not really highly rate Fire and Damnation up there, which I can see why, but at times I can't see why they don't rank Rising from the Sea as highly as Possessed by Fire. Overall, not a bad album, but it's definitely not the best. However, after this, yep, it's time. It's time to get to the new album, The Raging Tide. I'll see you again right after. I am Heavy Thrasher saying, I am out. It's time for The Raging Tides.